Hi, guys. Good morning. My name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and we are live this morning for Coffee Talk. I want to thank our folks for joining us. We've got a couple of people here. We'll be sending out just a means. I am the director for the Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and we're so happy to have you here for Coffee Talk. This is a really great opportunity for us to get a chance to talk about some of the current events, about what's happening in the local industry, as well as some of the questions that you guys may send in to us ahead of time. So we did get some questions that will take some time to address here before kind of getting into some additional content on sourcing and managing your supply chain. Some things we'll get into that are a little bit more weighty and a little bit more of a deep dive. So a lot of this content gets, really guided by you. So if you're asking us, more high-level questions, we'll answer more high-level questions. If you want us to go for a deep dive, I'll go for a deep dive, on, really a lot of different topics regarding what it is we do here. ACC Fashion Incubator is a program that was created with the Austin Community College, Gerber Technology, and the City of Austin Economic Development to really support the local industry here. So this is really an opportunity for me to get a chance to speak with you about what it is that you need and how we can support you in these next, really difficult times. It's completely unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this before. And, I think that sometimes whenever we're going through changes, it kind of it requires us to take a minute to kind of reevaluate. But there's sometimes whenever you just kind of need a break from reevaluating and you need to be able to talk about things that are a bit more, a little lighter. So we try to take on a little bit of both. On Mondays we do this. On Wednesdays we do our workshops on technical design and tech packs. We'll go into a little bit more about that later. And then on Friday, we do our ACCFI Presents. And that's a really great opportunity for us to talk with local industry professionals about how they're managing their businesses. So this week, we'll be talking with Musa Atto of Adolphine Group. And he is the founder and CEO of League of Rebels. And so they've been doing some incredible work reopening during these times. And so I can't wait to share with you about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what that looks like. So we'll be doing a lot more of that. But I wanted to get into one of the questions that we got today. Someone was asking about fashion illustration. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share a little bit about fashion illustration first, and then I'll kind of get more into some of the other content that we've planned for today. But what we wanted to do was to, I believe we had someone ask us about, can you just tell me a little bit more about fashion illustration? We have a few different ways that we use fashion illustration. That's really just when we do a sketch of a garment. Sometimes what people will think about as fashion illustration, they're thinking it's like the whole, the model form. It's, these really long, sinewy, figures that have these very elaborate details and designs, and maybe it's done in watercolor, or maybe it's done in marker. Those are much more like illustrative and feels, kind of conveys a mood. They're beautiful to look at. But then there's also what we would call technical fashion illustration. And that's really where we would be communicating for fashion illustration, really for the factory's benefit, for a buyer's benefit. A lot of those really stylized, images where there's, kind of it's on a model or it's kind of stylized and you see them kind of holding their hands, or, some of those can be of some benefit, but it doesn't give you a lot of detail about what's happening with the garment at times. So there's various ways that you can do it. There's a spectrum, so we won't have time to go into all the different ways that happens. But what I'll do, because I do want to make sure to answer your question as thoroughly as possible, is we'll actually send you some additional information and images of what the range of fashion illustrations are. And we actually teach fashion illustration here at the college. So if you're really interested in learning about fashion illustration, you can actually take a class here at ACC. Some of those classes are offered online and some classes are offered in person. And so you'll have to look to see if they have an online delivery for our digital fashion illustration course. Otherwise, it'll be a class that has to be delivered in person. And so they'll be giving us updates and over the coming weeks of when those kinds of classes will be available. But this is a really great opportunity for us to, collaborate and work with our, with a variety of different departments across the college to be able to share, about that kind of information. So fashion illustration, you've got these very over the top, beautiful, colorful designs that, look very stylized, but they may not be proportionate. And then you've got more technical fashion illustration that tends to be a bit more descriptive and helps you to understand how the garment should be put together. And so that's a very key distinction. I think the last thing I'll say about fashion illustration is really about who is it intended for? Is the illustration intended for to help someone make a purchase? Is it intended, and is that person a buyer or are they like a consumer? And is the illustration enough for them to make that decision from? A lot of times you're still going to need to get to a sample. And so typically what happens is the fashion illustration is more artistic, and it doesn't give you as much detail. And then whenever you go into your technical sketch, it actually does provide a bit more context and support to your factory or your sample maker or your pattern maker about how that garment should be put together. So as much detail as you can possibly put in, what kind of stitches should there be? Where do the darts get placed? What is the proportion of the torso? All of those things are really important to communicate. We even use a variety of line weights, where I use a really thick line when I'm using a very heavy fabric, or I use a very thin line when I'm trying to communicate a very lightweight fabric. These all help give cues to the factory, to the stitchers, to the sourcing agents about what would be appropriate to make this garment come to life. And so that's really what our goal is, to take that beautiful illustration from your paper to something that someone can walk away with and own for themselves. So this is really how we, start to create that communication. On Wednesdays, I actually go into this a lot more detail. This Wednesday, we're actually talking about color choices and how we communicate those color choices on the garment, and so on the actual sketch itself. And so I can actually give you a lot more detail if you want to join us back on Workshop Wednesday at 10 a.m. here on YouTube Live to be able to tell you a bit more about how those illustrations get communicated. So this is a really great opportunity to kind of push that back into, I think, that space where we are showing those illustrations there, and we can go into a little bit more detail. So I hope that was a thorough answer for you. But yeah, it's really dependent on who's going to be seeing it, how it's going to be used, and what your end goal is with that sketch. So, but there's so many different ways that you can work with it. You can work digitally, you can work by hand. It's a lot of fun, and it's very technical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch gears. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about today was about we're looking a little bit about sustainable supply chains and really about fashion sourcing. And so I'm referencing a McKinsey article here. I love McKinsey, in terms of just having a reference point, but McKinsey, Business of Fashion, Vogue Business, there are a lot of really great resources to be able to pull from in order to utilize to really understand more about what's happening in our business and in our world for what's changing in our industry. So this particular article, we'll actually share the link with you. Let me see if I can actually share this link in the chat. Yeah, I can. Let's see. What I'll do is I'll talk to it and then I'll share it with you whenever we're all done, and then you can kind of take your time to peruse at your leisure. But a time for change, this is how to use the crisis to make fashion sourcing more agile and sustainable. So that's McKinsey's title, not my title. But one of the things I wanted to bring out about it was just looking at several different ways that we really look at how we are responding in the crisis and how do we manage ourselves a bit more effectively during this time. So, there are a lot of things that go into, what's happening in the crisis currently. A lot of people are switching into making personal protective equipment. They are making a lot of changes in terms of how their supply chains are set up. Sometimes it means getting new machinery to be able to support creating additional PPE that isn't as easy to make with our current setup, and then kind of looking at what the long-term opportunities are with adding those activities into their regular business model. For some people, it makes sense. For some people, it doesn't. But really, what we're looking at, is, really this global experience of, what this pandemic has done for us across the world has really called into question, I think, really how are we looking at how we're rebalancing our risk in terms of where we're getting our materials and supplies from. I think that's kind of been apparent, a lot of times, people are like, hey, we need to get more masks, or we need to get more gowns, or we need more, equipment, but a lot of those supplies are in a few places. And so, or there's just not enough of it being made in the places that they're currently housed. And so what we want to be able to do is to say, okay, well, this is really kind of pushing us into decisions that we probably should have been making already, but how are we remapping and resourcing just to kind of get a better balance, for our costs, for our ability to move quickly into product when needed. A lot of times this really has to do with not putting all your eggs in one basket, and being able to spread out your risk. Hold on just a second. It has to do with being able to spread out your risk. There you go. Let's see here. I'm getting some support here, so I'm just trying to make sure to respond to the chats. I'm going to send this link. You guys can kind of, but I'm going to send it a little bit later, so then I can kind of talk through the points, and then you'll have the link to the actual article in just a minute. So that way we get a chance to have a bit more of our conversation, and then we'll, and then I think it'll make it a little bit easier. So let me, hold on, I've got a little one here. So I'm trying to make sure he's situated. All right, bud. How about this? Good? Here it comes. So what I wanted to do was to just go through, there's just a couple of things that McKinsey recommends in terms of areas that fashion companies really need to look at in order to tackle kind of reshaping how they're doing their apparel sourcing. The first one is what I'm talking about right now, which is really rebalancing your risk mix by saying, hey, let's take a look at where are we getting all of our supplies and where are we placing everything. And so this is, if you've heard me talk before, you've heard me talk about nearshoring. This is really just about, decentralizing, some of your activities that maybe, and it may be a bit counterintuitive, right? Like if you're looking at like, normally we're doing things offshore, but bringing things closer by. This is nearshoring, and something I've actually spoken about before. And I believe it's something that, we also talked about with Sam Alexander about kind of repositioning where a lot of these, where a lot of your activities are happening. So if your fabric is always coming from, one particular country, or if your, trim is always coming from another place, or if your labor is always happening in another place, what we recommend is kind of coming up with a mix that makes your risk a lot less, to lower your risk significantly. And so what that does is it says, okay, even if something goes wrong in this particular place, it's not going to have a long-term effect on my business somewhere else, because at least I have a portion of my business to continue to meet the demand of my customer somewhere else. The other thing is that whenever I have something like a global pandemic going on that we didn't realize was going to be here, it categorically changes the speed at which I can get my product. And so my agility is significantly decreased. And so I'm not able to move fast enough to be able to get my product out. So, we've seen this, firsthand, whenever we're trying to order materials or products from other places, it just takes a little bit longer. It may be because they don't have as many employees working right now. It may be because there's, maybe they're closed, or maybe there's just a lower volume being produced, for a lot of those same reasons. So there's a lot of things that, give us an opportunity to say, you know what, I probably did have too much of my business in one particular place, and I probably need to start to redistribute that risk somewhere else. It really helps also with managing the cost too, because sometimes, like, if you are looking at, regardless of what you're selling, every product isn't going to give you the same profit. Some products is going to be a bit more expensive to make, some of it is going to be less expensive to make. But what you can sell it for in the market may be different. So this is getting a bit heady or a little bit more detailed. So I can keep going more detailed, but I want to make sure that, this is, kind of easy, light morning conversation. But this is an opportunity to really look at all of those things that go into how easy is it for you to get your customer to your market. Sorry, your product to your customer in this market. So this is something that we really try to look at in terms of remapping and resourcing, where you can actually you can mix your risk and cost and flexibility to be able to manage your business more effectively. So so this is something that we talk to businesses about, something that we try to support local businesses with. We have a really great network. I do quite a lot of referring across the business and across the industry, and it really helps us to bring in manufacturers and labor skilled businesses, and as well as designers and material sourcing. Actually, just last week I was on the phone with a representative from Latvia. Is talking about all the great opportunities they have in terms of labor and textiles and all of this. And, he was telling me, that a lot of people have been finding this an opportunity in really helping them manage their risk a bit better. So, we talk with, companies, and countries across the world, about what those opportunities are and how they can better support, decentralizing and, remixing some of those sourcing opportunities. So if there's ever an opportunity or, a question about, hey, Nina, how could I, access some of that, or can you point me in the right direction? That's actually something that we're really happy to do, because it really helps to build the whole ecosystem and keeps the fashion industry vibrant and growing. And so that's something that we really feel very strongly about, very passionate about. And so I'm very happy to be able to try to make those referrals and connections where possible. So feel free to reach out. You can just drop us a note in the chat, or send us an email at fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. And we do make ourselves available to be able to help facilitate connections that can kind of help you remix your product and really your sourcing. So the other thing is forging stronger supply chains. This is McKinsey's words, not mine. So the next thing that they think is, kind of a key component here is really about forging stronger supplier partnerships to drive innovation and secure supply. So I'm going to say it again in a different way. The closer you are to the people who help you make your product, the better. And you may find that there's opportunities to collaborate with them on a unique business model that helps improve your business and improves their business by association. So that's something that we really believe in. I've seen businesses do this. It's actually talking with a company in China that does, they have their core business, but they also have business where they're focused on emerging talent and helping that emerging talent get to the local market to the scale that they need to in order to grow more effectively. And so that's something where we're like, oh, okay, we see that there's opportunities here, but those supplier partnerships, then maybe they become that they create a bit of a portfolio business, or they're, creating other innovative structures to be able to secure a new product or a new customer, as well as securing the supply at the right time into the market. So these are all things that get that have an opportunity here, kind of in this, like, we get a chance to reassess, how are we thinking more sustainably? Does going together help us go further? And a lot of times it does. So, how do you build that relationship with your supplier to have a partnership that will help you get to the next level? So this is really key. We only have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure that I don't rush at the end. Um, but the next section is really about, digitizing your value chain. You've heard me talk about digitizing before. Digitize, digitize, digitize. We actually work with Gerber Technology a lot, and they are one of our founding partners at the ACC Fashion Incubator. And so the product lifecycle management software that we're alluding to on Workshop Wednesdays is really one of those things that allows you to digitize your value chain. So what do we mean by that? It just means that in all of your communications with your vendors, buyers, suppliers, factories, even your customers, that you have a central or more central location in a digital space that allows you to move more quickly. So for us, it's unique PLM, which is unique product lifecycle management software. But this is a place where all that information that I'm sharing with you about the tech pack and all the different components and the colors and all of that goes into creating a garment, all of that lives in one central location. And in our case, it lives in unique PLM. And that's an opportunity for us to be able to have a place for that to live digitally. So what's the benefit of that? The benefit of working digitally is that now, instead of me having to share an Excel file or a PDF document or a Word file, which is still technically digital, what we are doing now is we're bringing everyone into one location in the cloud to be able to all put in our pieces into one space in real time. So this really makes a huge difference in speed. When I worked at QVC, American Eagle Outfitters, we actually use a few different kinds of product lifecycle management softwares. I'll focus on Unique since that's the one that our technology partner uses. But the benefit, guys, to digitizing our value chain was that we literally shaved off weeks of our delivery. And that was incredible. For you to be able to get your product to your customer weeks faster than your competitor, it signals, that you're responsive. It allows you to be a bit more agile and targeted. It allows you to, if you can move that quickly, then you don't really have to, work on building so much inventory to backfill, because you don't need to be sitting on all of that extra product. So the faster you can move the products, in terms of, having the right product to the customer, in terms of your quantities, that you can kind of cull down those quantities to what really makes sense for what your customer needs. But then you're really able to be a bit more agile. So as we're seeing, like, okay, we're making tons of PPE right now, hopefully in the near future, or even in a few months, or, we'll be hopefully transitioning out of this. That's really what our hope is, right? But on the other side of it, what's the new thing? What will we be doing? I think a lot of us believe face coverings will still be here for some time. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that it's something that, the more we've digitized our processes, the more quickly we can respond to what those changes are. And that's really key. So whenever we're thinking about that, even when you're sourcing and buying, material or buttons or any of those things, all of those things are affected by your ability to move quickly. And so if you're not able to, or if you don't have a space digitally where all of your vendors and all of your factory and all of your people can land, then that's going to be something that'll make it more difficult for you to move quickly. So these are all things that I would love to unpack further, because I think each one individually is an entire workshop. We could just talk about just this part for a very long time. So if you're interested in any of these particular points as a longer piece, I'm happy to do a deep dive, in future sessions. And so then the last thing is really about being adaptive in your operating, and how you're actually operating your business. Sometimes, during the way things have been, leading up to this time, we had a certain way that we were doing business. If you joined us on Friday, just this past Friday, we were speaking with Sheila Hawkins Bucklew of Hawkins Bucklew Jewelry and Showroom 808. And she was just talking to me about the difference between what it is that she's been able to do, before the pandemic versus now, and what kind of shifts she's been making, and, and what her collaborations have been looking like. So even her mindset about how her business is going has, drastically changed, and then how she's actually developing her ecosystem to be able to meet the needs of creative women entrepreneurs. And so these are all things that we're looking at about how are we adapting our operating models, how are we adapting our mindsets to be more agile and more sustainable during this time. I think one of the things that we've really looked at here at the Fashion Incubator is, we were initially planning that our primary delivery of our program would be in person. That was our primary expectation, but that in the future we would be doing a virtual delivery of content, much like this one, and that we would actually batch that content up to be able to share in much more, in depth in the future. And that we'd be able to kind of share that not just with Austin, but it would be something that would be an available resource for all. And so, times have changed, and, shift, happens. And so you have to be able to, pivot, in the moment, and to be able to consider like, okay, yes, it was in our plan in our second or third year to really launch a full virtual experience. But, today's the day, and today's the day when we actually need it. And so, changing your mindset, adapting your operational model. It doesn't mean that we won't ever be in person. It just means that we'll be adjusting how and when we do those things. So, a lot of this just really helps us to kind of, honestly, because of the change, it's actually put us into contact with other accelerators and other incubators who are in a very similar boat. And so we've gotten a chance to have some of these conversations with brands and companies and businesses who manage this all the time. So, or we're all figuring it out together. So, just as powerful as, working with people who are ahead of you, it's also powerful to work with people who we're all kind of trying to solve the problem together. So this has been something that I know that we've been doing here at the Fashion Incubator, but it's something that you can do as well. The cool thing is I was talking with someone who was actually, had just joined a Zoom call that I was on, one of the many Zoom or WebEx calls you've been on. And he was told me that in the last 4 hours, he had talked to 4 different countries. He's like, when else would I be able to do this? Like typically, you would say, hey, I need to make plans to be at these meetings. And, there'd be a long lag of time in between, and you would have flown there, or, there would be a lot of different logistical things that we were, insisting had to happen in order for these connections to be meaningful. And now all of a sudden, because of where we are, we've said, actually, this is still quite effective. I'm still sitting on my couch. I've spoken with 4 different countries today. I've moved, a program or a project along, further than expected. And it's really just a change in my mindset. And so this is really where the agility and sustainability comes in, because now, I didn't contribute to the carbon footprint, with my movement. I was much more agile because I was able to converse with a variety of different business partners globally in a short period of time. And so this is really kind of introducing some new opportunities here. And maybe they were able to do it while, their family was, in the next room, which, really changes a lot of what our expectations are in terms of how we want to work and where we want to be. So, and what's possible in business. So I think fashion, although it's really difficult, to make change, I think this has been, I think this is an opportunity for very positive change in the future, and to really reconsider how we're doing it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hit send on this link here for the article to McKinsey, just so that you can see it here. Let's see if I can send it. Let's see. Oh, I see. Let me see if I can send it to you guys. I actually may have to send it to you in the email. So if you haven't actually signed up for our email, I'm going to try it one more time here in the chat. But if I'm not able to do it here in the chat, I would love for you to, let's see. You know what? I don't think it's sending this way, so I'm not going to beat that. But what I will say is, I will send it to. We'll try to send it out via email. And then for the person who had the questions regarding the illustration, I think the best thing for you to do is to join us on Wednesday at 10 a.m. for Workshop Wednesday. But I do have some additional illustration documents, but they're brand sensitive. So I need to clean them up for you so that we can kind of remove all the brand content so that it's not, releasing anything proprietary. But we actually, I'm looking at our administrator. We're not going to send it out over email, but what we will do is we'll share the link in the chat, and we will provide that additional information during Workshop Wednesday. So if you haven't already, go ahead and send us a no or RCP for Workshop Wednesday. It's free. We'd love to see you there. We will be talking about the fashion illustration in the tech pack, but we are focused on colorways on Wednesday. Again, on Friday, join us back for ACCFI Presents, where I'll be speaking with Musa Otto of a Dolphin Trading Group and League of Rebels. So he's here locally in Austin, doing incredible work globally. We're really looking forward to getting him to share with you about how he's doing in retail and what reopening looks like in this climate. So feel free to shoot us any questions ahead of time that you'd really love for us to ask. We will be monitoring the chat for that session. And we look forward to talking with you soon. So again, my name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator. And this was Coffee Talk. So thanks again, and we'll talk with you soon. Bye.